I'm a happy man. Last weekend, my second daughter, Karis, got married to a wonderful man named Kurt Schneider. And we had a private wedding, and I was thinking while I was there, man, everybody should do this. You know, because there's a lot of money spent, I feel like, on a couple things that sometimes we can be a bit extravagant, you know, which are weddings and funerals. And we had this beautiful wedding in Michigan with just our families, and what I loved about it was two things. One was it felt sacred, you know, because there wasn't this attention to just all the different people and that are coming, which is important, but it was like more about their commitment to one another, and then those who were really near that saw them grow up, you know, to encourage them and bless them. And then the second part was it was intimate because it was smaller. So yeah, we loved it, and my family and I, we celebrate Karis and Kurt and their union, but it was a beautiful moment as a parent. You know, one of your joys is to see your kids partner up with somebody that they can walk life with. So yeah, I'm a really happy man. While I was out there, I was able to get to know Karis's father-in-law and his wife much better. And I found that they're like a lost brother and sister. And so not only have I inherited like a son, I've inherited a brother and sister that I didn't really know existed till the last few months. And it's a delight to know them. But anyways, he took me to one of his workplaces in Michigan. And I got to see the future. Now, I've heard about it, and you hear about it, but often you don't really note the reality unless you experience it. And I experienced it. It basically was a robotics manufacturing headquarters for America. And they also have one in Japan and in Brazil, Mexico City. And they help produce a lot of robots that are used globally as well as the AI. And as I listened to him, and as I listened to Rogan and Andrew Yang, the interview on YouTube, because he told me to watch it, it dawned on me, something that I had mentioned in the past, but became evident while I was there, was that our future is precarious, especially when you just look at the signs of the times. And when I say this, I say from a human perspective, right? Because we all have hope in Jesus. But if you look at what's happening, and they estimate by the year 2030 that 20 to 30% of the current jobs in America are going to be gone. They will literally be taken by robots. When you look at the transportation industry with drivers and then also the retail. In the past, you know, robots, they say that we would try to hope that the standard was that they could be as good as humans. But now they're surpassing us. One of the robots that I was able to see was a robot that took literally a jar of 3 colored balls, it's about 15 of them, and took it and just dumped them on a table. There's 3 jars in front of it, and literally within seconds it took the different colored balls and put them in the category of its color. There's no way you could have beaten this robot, and it was accurate. So they're smarter, they're faster, and now that they have AI, they're constantly learning and they're getting better. So I said, man, we're gonna hit some pretty tough times. Andrew Yang said that, you know, whenever there was a revolution with like the Industrial Revolution, riots would follow because of all the jobs that were lost. So, you know, we're seeing rioting now, we're seeing protests, but can you imagine when maybe 30% unemployment hits America within the next 10 years? What is that going to do? When you look at what's happening not only with the economic situation where people are losing their jobs, you have to also think about this, our churches. You know, what's happening in our churches? A lot of the metrics of the past was about Sunday morning attendance. And the staff that's hired usually is focused on the programming and the execution of that Sunday morning. But what if we don't meet in buildings for a while? And what if a lot of people like being at home? And maybe they like other teachers from other churches better, or other musicians, where they can plug and play whoever they want. My guess is there's going to be a good group of people that don't mind staying at home, and they can still learn a lot and still hang out whenever they want to with their friends. So there's a shift that's going on even with our churches. The staffs may not be the same. Our roles and responsibilities may be shifting. I mean, it's a major change. All this is happening right now. And then I have to think about our current context. Are you getting a little bit tired? Are you feeling like, you know what, I've had enough? I mean, I'm seeing all the protests, I'm seeing all the articulation on social media. It's exhausting. It's like you're getting re-traumatized every day, as for hours sometimes you're just looking at all these feeds from your friends. Are you tired? I tell people, just imagine our black community, our friends. They've been dealing with this for 400 years. You see, I think we're just scratching the surface. And maybe we have to stay in this a while. So the question that I wrestled with this past week was, how do you stay in the game and stay alert, stay alive, stay joyful? I mean, how do we do it when you're getting inundated with these future predictions, and there's even these thoughts of conspiracies that people believe in? I mean, how do you stay focused, awake, and filled with joy? I had to look at Jesus. Because he's the model, right? And I don't mean it as this simplistic solution, because a relationship with Jesus is not easy. Carrying out his heart sometimes is very difficult. But you'll hear people say that. Let's talk about Jesus. Let's preach about Jesus. It's all about the gospel. And again, it's this gravitational pull that we want to simplify things, so we'll just say that, and we think that's going to solve it. But the truth is, it's not just uttering the name Jesus or saying the word gospel or just preach it. Because the truth is, people are tired of our preaching. The truth is, they're tired of the talk and the superficiality of our lives, especially from the religious and the evangelical community. So what are we supposed to focus on? Well, if you look historically at the Old Testament, there was a lot of laws. There was a lot of truth, a lot of commandments. It seemed like there was these sporadic instances of interactions with God, or the prophets would get a word and then they would communicate that to everybody. Very authoritarian, and it was very around text and word, declaration, or on pages. There was a shift that occurred. After Malachi, there was that 400 years of silence, and then there was this embarking of this new era. And this new era would be marked not just by teaching the laws and rules and commands, but it would be embodied in a person. My belief is that when you look at John, especially chapter 1 and verse 14, what you'll note is that God knew that man needed more than text. He needed more than a set of rules and declarations. He needed for us to experience the truth. So that's why in the very first verses of John chapter 1, it said, the Word became truth, or Jesus was in the beginning, the Word, and then the Word was with us. So Jesus embodied the Logos. He embodied the gospel. He was the truth. So God knew that humanity, needed to experience him. So when you come to verse 14, it says this, it's powerful. And listen to this picture, because it tells us how to focus our lives when we look at how Jesus entered and lived in our world. It's all embodied in this one verse. It says, so the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. And we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Okay, there's 4 things I see that we can do. Whenever you feel confused, whenever you're feeling way down, you're stressed out, and you're saying, God, what do you want me to be about while I'm here? Is it just preaching Jesus? Just saying, hey, study the gospel? No, look what Jesus did. It wasn't just his declaration of truth. He became the truth. So that's the first thing, is be the truth. Be human. He said that. He said, so the Word became human. You see, it's not just talking about these abstract things. It's not trying to sell Jesus. We don't have to do that. What it is to be. We have this thought at Newsong called third culture. And I like to define third culture as the mindset and will to love, learn, and serve in any culture, even in the midst of pain and discomfort. Again, one more time. Third culture is the mindset and will to love, learn, and serve in any culture, even in the midst of pain and discomfort. You see, that's human. To be human is to listen, is to learn, it's to serve, which is truly the embodiment and the essence of love. That's what Jesus did. He loved us so much that he came into this container of human flesh so that we could experience him fully. And then he would take on the suffering and the stresses and the anxieties of humanity and have to bear that and deal with it, even to the point of death. He became human. It seems like when we're Christians, sometimes we become inhuman. We don't get in touch with really what's going on, and we talk in language that people don't understand, and we make these alliances with religion and rules when maybe that's not what Jesus really did. The second thing that you see about Jesus is not only did he become, but he made his home amongst us. And we would say that that's something like he built. So he built a home. And I love that imagery. You see, he wasn't just like a visitor. He built relationships. He made a home. A home isn't simply a geographical location or a material structure. A home is an entering, it's an engagement intentionally of meaningful relationships. And that's why at Newsong, we're all about this concept called havens. You know, in the past, we had things like small groups, and we still have some going on, which are great. But haven is this. It's where you're saying with a community of people, I want to make a home. I just don't want to talk about Jesus. I just don't want to talk about the Bible and just meet up and talk about things just like the weather. I want to get to know people. I want to know their burdens, their pains, their story, and then I want to be there with them, and I want to travel the world with them. I want to hang out with them, eat with them, play with them, share with them. You see, that's what Jesus did. He made a home. In the midst of crisis, one of the best things you can do when you're confused or you don't know what's going on is establish relationships. Man, we have to use this time where we're in our homes and we're not able to be physically close to people to be socially intimate still. We can still be socially close through the Zoom, through calls, even if the person's further away from us with our mask on, we can connect with people. But use this time to go deeper in the essentials of relationships. Make a home, build a home. The third thing was he was full of love and faithfulness. And I love that idea because when you're making a home, if you're going to last and if you're going to be growing, you have to be filled with this. There has to be this unconditional love for one another where even as you get to know each other and you go through the ups and downs, where there's betrayals and there's failures, there's disappointments, you stay in the game. You know, you stay in and you're filled with that unconditional love and you're going to be loyal. You're not going to leave. It's so surprising to me, right? And it's maybe surprising to all of us, and it shouldn't be, because I think we all do this, is we talk about, yeah, we're supposed to be loyal, we're supposed to be loving and faithful, but man, we're the first one to talk behind someone's back. We're the first one to gossip. We're the first ones to leave when we just don't like what's going on exactly, when there's a disagreement. Well, maybe with a person's lifestyle even though they may be pursuing something that's noble and of a high purpose. But still, because of one thing they did, we call it the cancel culture. We cancel people. Jesus wasn't about that. He was full of love and faithfulness and loyalty. So no matter what we would do, he would still die for us. No matter how much we would betray him, he would still love us. See, that's the type of love and activity that represents the embodiment of Jesus. So he was full of love, he was building home, he was being, like third culture, where he was listening, loving, learning, serving. But then fourthly, you see this visible glory of God being evident from him. Again, it's one thing to declare the glory of God and how awesome and great he is. It's another thing that you shine. So when people look at you, Whether they're looking at you through Facebook or Zoom or your Instagram and seeing the images, are they literally seeing the glory of God? Are you shining? You see, that to me isn't necessarily about a talk. It's not about you preaching at somebody or saying Jesus to a person, because your life speaks louder than any language that's coming through your lips. Jesus was displaying the glory of God, not just declaring it. So when I look at this, I go, wow, that's it, man. That's, in the middle of there was these 400 years of silence. There was a culture of the law and of all these regulations, these legalities where people got really religious. They were even looking down at Jesus. In the midst of all that, Jesus came and embodied the truth. More than just talk it, he lived it. He became, he built, he was full of love and faithfulness, and then he was visibly displaying the greatness of God by his life. So I was thinking about an example of this, and the passage, the context in Luke was that Samaritans and the Jews, they did not like each other. It was like the black and white thing that we're thinking about today. I mean, there's this racism, literal racism and prejudice. I mean, it was thousands of years ago, but it's current today. This Jewish man, when you read it, check it out. What happens is Jesus tells a story that he gets beat up. He says this in verse 30, I believe it's Luke chapter 10. It says, Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, left him half dead beside the road. This is brutality. They were expecting this man to die. Then what happens? This is by chance a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed them by. Then a temple assistant or a Levite walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. And did you note that? Who's passing by? It's the religious people. They stayed on the other side of the road. They saw it, but they stayed in their religion. They stayed in their course of what they thought they had to do that was most important. One got a little closer, came close and looked at it, but then again went back on the other side. Kept a demarcating line. There was no pure engagement. There was no generosity or empathy. It was just a looking down on. Then look at what happens. The enemy, the one that the Jew would be racist against in this story, he's lifted up as the hero. It says, then a despised, remember there's the adjective, Samaritan, came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here. Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits, Jesus asked. The man replied, the one who showed him mercy. Then Jesus said, yeah, now go and do the same. It was wonderful this past week. My wife found out that some of her relatives, her family, part of an Indian tribe on the East Coast, that years ago, one of the KKK Grand Masters wanted to take care of them. His hope was to gather over 1,000 people to attack this tribe. But it was cool because her relatives, the family, that she's connected to, they stood up against them. And they, in fact, gathered over 1,000 of the Indian tribe to meet the KKK. Well, only they said maybe 50 to 100 people showed up, and the Indian tribe had 1,000. Well, the KKK ran away in fear. Literally ran away in fear. What was cool about this to me was the KKK Grand Master, or whoever the leader was of that group, they said his wife and children or child was left in the car. He was so afraid he just took off and left them there. Well, his wife got stuck in the ditch and wasn't able to get out. What was cool was her family, this group of Indians, American Indians, they helped her get out from the ditch so she could leave. That's like a Good Samaritan story. When I look at the story, this Good Samaritan, he just didn't pass on the other side after he saw it. He just didn't preach at the person. He just didn't talk at it and keep going his way or her way. What happened to the Good Samaritan is he stopped. He engaged. He assessed the situation. He listened. And he put this man, this Jewish man that hated him or despised him, he put him not on his Ford Bronco or his Ford Mustang, but his Ford donkey. I mean, his mode of transportation. He stopped his business, and then he took him to an inn. He took care of him. He tended to his wounds personally. He didn't say, you take care. He first took care of him himself. He put the oil on and the bandaging on him. And then not only did he stay with him, again, that's another level. It's not just attending to the emergency relief, but then you stay with a person. And then you look at what's needed in the future. It's a systemic look at a person's health. And he told the innkeeper, hey, listen, I got to take off, but hey, make sure to take care of him. And then if there's any bills, I got it. You know, I'll be coming back through, and I'll pay for that. That's called generosity. We would say that that's John 1:14. That's Jesus, man. He was with him. You know, he was building a relationship. He built home. And then he was full of love and faithfulness. He was literally displaying the glory of God versus like talking about it. And I think this is really the picture. You know, this is such an appropriate parable to me, or story of really what's happening in our day. Think about it. Who are the priests and the Levites of our day? Could it be that we who are Christians are this? Who are the Samaritans? Could it be Black Lives Matter? Could it be the community of the Pride, the gay community, the queer, the transgender? Could this be the Good Samaritans? You know, I hear some of my friends, I hear some people condemning Pride, the Pride community. They condemn maybe the Black community. And they say, well, I don't like who those people are. I don't like that they do this or say this. I said, wait a second. They're fighting for justice. They're dealing with the suffering of our community. You're looking at maybe that action or maybe something you don't agree with in terms of their lifestyle, but do you see their purpose, that they're trying to eradicate stigmas? They're trying to eradicate racism? They're trying to give people equality? You see, that's being human. I wonder if we've fallen into the same trap where we're just walking by the other side of the road and we say, yeah, just preach the gospel. Just stay in your lane. When it's interesting to me is, for a lot of us, I think the end justifies the means, because what happens is we'll elect leadership in government or in business. We'll follow leadership. And we're okay with their lifestyle misogyny, their racism, their prejudice, their bullying, because maybe they're promoting one of our social agendas, which are maybe biblical, but we'll put up with their sins or their lifestyles that we don't agree with, that we know maybe are intrinsically and maybe against God, because of the end goal that we have, that they're doing these two things that we really believe in. Well, I say, if that's really true, then why don't we do that with those who maybe disagree with us socially? Yeah, you know what? I think we as a church have to confess sometimes that we become just like that religious priest. We become just like that Levite. Yeah, so, you know, I don't know about you, but my heart aches because I think about all the people when I was younger that I must have hurt, and how, you know, because of our arrogance, that we think we know a better way, that instead of just being human and loving and celebrating when a person's doing good, we just judge and we draw these demarcation lines and we say, that's not my problem. And this is the issue I want to focus on. when literally our brothers and sisters are dying. There are people suffering and hurting. When I look at this passage, it's so clear to me. This is not an issue that's 2,000 years ago. It's the same thing. God's called us to be like him. The word was great, the declarations, the commandments, the rules, but God knew that humanity needed more, so that's why Jesus came. He embodied it. He became, he built a home. He was full of love and faithfulness. He visibly displayed the glory of God. The transformation of a person's soul is not dependent upon our words. It's dependent upon the move of the Holy Spirit. If anybody's going to breathe life into society, breathe life into someone that we think is erroneous in some way of their lifestyle, that is truly the work of God. It's true whether it's a group of people that you don't feel naturally inclined to connect with, but it's also true, come on, be honest, even our own homes. My guess is if you have a spouse, you have a partner, you have children that are intelligent, they're thinking, they have their own mind about stuff. But even though you have disagreement, you still love them. You're not going to leave. You're still full of love and faithfulness. Whew. It's not easy, is it? But you know, these type of things, people ask me, well, how do we get vision and strategy in these times? I say, well, it's not just by trying to use your logic. It's, you know, that's a part of it. It's not just by taking data. I mean, that's a part of it. You know what I tell people to do? I say, get in relationship with people not like you. The ones you disagree with, get to know them. The culture that's difficult for you because you think they're sinners, or because you think they're the ones that are not favored by God. How about getting to know their story? My guess is you'll see that there's some deep wounds that they have that are just like ours, but maybe even deeper. And what they need is not your spoken word, your declarations. They just need someone to display the glory of God. A couple things I want to do with you before I pray. You know, I want to pray this prayer. Coach K with Duke, he came out with a statement this week. It was powerful, and he read the Cadets Prayer. I'd like us to pray that prayer in a moment, but before I do, I want you to consider a couple things to act upon. Number one, would you consider a relationship that's not like you, someone of a different culture, someone that maybe you think is the sinner of your life or in your community? Would you make an advance on that and spend some time with them? The thing you could do is, instead of talking about the thing that you don't agree with, how about talking about their story? Have them share their story of their childhood, the joyful, the painful moments. Get to know somebody. Again, while we're physically distant, doesn't mean that we have to be socially distant. We can connect on Zoom, we can call, we can be distant from one another and hang out. The second thing, how about take the Awaken at Newsong. If you haven't taken Awaken, I'm going to offer that in the next couple weeks. Awaken's an orientation on how you can make Newsong home. So take the Awaken. Sign up for it on the communication card. We have, go to 81411, text that, 81411, and just do NS Next, N-S-N-E-X-T. Yeah, sign up for Awaken, sign up to join a group or a Haven group. You got to do it. If you're looking where you're kind of distant, you're just checking this out right now, you haven't been to church, you just happen to come upon this, you're interested in how we're discussing things or how we're leading in this time, well, come to Yo House on Wednesday nights. If you want to kind of go into a deeper conversation, Yo House, you can go to yo.haus/invite, and we have these great conversations. One of my friends, Israel Houghton's coming on. He's half black, half white. He's won a ton of Grammys. I'm interviewing him this week. But we just have great conversations. You can meet people around the world from like close to 20 different nations. But bring your friends who normally wouldn't come to like this. They wouldn't listen to a Sunday service. But go to that. Check it out. Yo House, yo.haus/invite, and join. All right? And then the other thing I would say is, I'm willing to join you in a Zoom call right after this, today. All right? Let's meet up. If you need prayer, If you want to talk about this some more, me and a couple of the other leaders here, the pastors, we'd love to meet with you. But yeah, take a step, make a home. Again, clarity will come from relationships, but you have to be intentional about building a home, about becoming a human. All right, so let's pray, all right? This prayer is so awesome. As we pray this prayer, would you really embrace it, if you can agree with it? This is at West Point, and Coach K said that he had to pray this at West Point, and it's called the Cadets Prayer. But I thought it was a great prayer for us. I loved how they languaged this. So how about standing? And then you can look at this. I think it's going to be on your screens. Read this prayer with me, all right? Right in your house or in your car, wherever you are. And let's say this to God. O God, our Father, thou searcher of men's hearts, help us to draw near to thee in sincerity and truth. May our religion be filled with gladness, and may our worship of thee be natural. Strengthen and increase our admiration for honest dealing and clean thinking, and suffer not our hatred of hypocrisy and pretense ever to diminish. Encourage us in our endeavor to live above the common level of life. Make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. Yeah, I love that quote. And never to be content with a half-truth when the whole truth can be won. Endow us with courage that is born of loyalty to all that is noble and worthy, that scorns to compromise with vice and injustice, and knows no fear when truth and right are in jeopardy. Guard us against flippancy and irreverence in the sacred things of life. Grant us new ties of friendship and new opportunities of service. Kindle our hearts in fellowship with those of a cheerful countenance, and soften our hearts with sympathy for those who sorrow and suffer. May we find genuine pleasure in clean and wholesome mirth, and feel inherent disgust for all coarse-minded humor. Help us in our work and in our play to keep ourselves physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight, that we may better maintain the honor of the core, but we could say of Christ's followers, untarnished and unsullied, and acquit ourselves like men and women in our efforts to realize the ideas of the church community, and doing our duty to thee and to our country. All of which we ask in the name of the great friend and master of humanity. Amen.